opportunity.
Well, wonderful. We're happy for you. But you were there when the targeting of conservative groups started then, right?
Apparently it did, but I was not involved in any of that.
Says you were head of exempt, advised the commissioner regarding exempt organization requirements. This all took place in the exempt organization division of the IRS.
But I did not handle any.
Didn't know anything about it?
I did not handle.
Did you work with Lois Lerner?
I did work with Lois.
And you did, but you didn't know anything about the be on the lookout list or anything like that?
I was not aware of those particular.
When did you first find out that the IRS was targeting conservative people and this whole double standard that I just mentioned was going on right in the very division that you were supposed to be advising and overlooking?
Sure, I appreciate the question. I would disagree with characterization of targeting, but I was at the meeting.
Well, you don't think people were targeted?
Don't believe they were. I think there was a
list that had 3 terms: 9, 12, Tea Party, and conservative. If those terms come up, you got put on the list.
Yeah, I absolutely appreciate the question, and
You don't think there was targeting? The President of the United States
I believe
at the time
the IRS was doing its best to do its job and didn't have the resources and was trying to find ways of accomplishing.
This isn't about resources. This is about targeting specific points of view, Mr. Hackney.
I understand that.
The Attorney General and the President of the United States had a big press conference when it became public and said, we're going to get to the bottom of this. They talked about possible criminal liability, and you're saying it didn't even exist in the very division that you were head of?
I'm not saying it didn't exist. I'm not saying that they were not looking at Tea Party organizations, but I'm also saying that they were looking at many different other organizations, as you'll see from various reports that came out later. That
is not true. That is not what the Inspector General said. And frankly, if it was just, we were looking at everyone the same, I don't think Lois Lerner would have taken the fifth when she sat right where you were sitting here today. But I got to get to Mr. Fenton in my last 2 minutes and 30 seconds here. $2 billion since 2001, right, Mr. Fitton? That's what the Clinton Foundation took in. Is that right? $2 billion?
Numbers like that I've seen.
48 million in speeches, I think you said in your opening statements. That we did the math. You said like 200 something. That's like $250,000 for every single speech. He's pretty good. I mean, I've heard him speak, but that is amazing. And then you said in 2008, when Secretary Clinton became secretary, there was an agreement that I think in your testimony you said there are certain things she had to do. For the duration of her appointment, she would not be involved in all this money that the Clinton Foundation was taking in and all the speeches that her husband was doing, right? She wouldn't be signing off or making decisions about that. Is that right?
Yeah.
And the Clinton Foundation would disclose its donors. So there was an agreement that she worked out when she was Senate confirmed.
Right.
Okay. Did they follow the agreement?
No. And not in my view, at least.
So they had to get permission for her to be Secretary of State and continue to do all the things they did. They got permission, they got the okay, and then they didn't follow it.
No, they immediately began, the foundation immediately contacted Ms. Abedin, who worked closely with Mrs. Clinton, to start getting things done for foundation supporters, as I've described. And it's not what I described, the emails.
So the secretary, she kept her part of the deal, but she just had her lawyer, her chief of staff sign off on everything. Is that sort of how it worked?
Yeah, Abedin did the heavy lifting there, yeah.
Yeah. You think there's a double standard right now in America, Mr. Fitton?
Oh, yeah. Mrs. Clinton is being protected by, and was protected, and frankly still is being protected from the consequences of her behavior at the State Department and subsequently.
My colleague from Virginia talked about some things that have happened recently with Mr. Cohen, but I think it's interesting. I don't remember anyone associated, during the Clinton investigation, I don't remember anyone associated with the Clinton investigation. Well, first of all, they didn't even call it an investigation. Remember what they were told to call it?
A matter.
Yeah, we're supposed to call it a matter, right? It was obviously an investigation, but was told to be called a matter. I don't remember Cheryl Mills getting her door kicked in at 5 in the morning and having everything confiscated. I don't remember that at all. In fact, she worked out a deal ahead of time, got immunity before she even turned over any of her records or communications. Is that right?
Yeah, I'd like to, I would just love the committees or someone to investigate. We're doing it separately at Judicial Watch, but to find out whether or not, as report suggests, the foundation investigation the FBI was conducting in 2016 was actively suppressed by the Justice Department and curtailed. Public reports are that FBI agents were only able to read newspaper articles as part of their investigation. They were denied subpoenas and other basic tools available to them.
Yeah.
And when you compare and contrast the special counsel investigation into President Trump and his associates, that's what a real investigation looks like, abuses aside. We haven't had anything comparable even during the Clinton email issue.
Yeah.
Certainly this is tied to the Clinton email issue.
Mr. Chairman, I know I'm a little over time, but if I could real quick, I didn't expect to spend as much time on Mr. Hackney denying that there was targeting at the IRS. But you're, I think, exactly right. I've never seen this happen, Mr. Fitton, where the director of the FBI is fired, the deputy director is fired, the chief legal counsel is demoted, then leaves. FBI counsel Lisa Page is demoted, then leaves. And Peter Strzok, deputy head of counterintelligence at the FBI, is demoted and then fired. I've never seen that happen. But what's interesting, those are the same people who ran the Clinton investigation and started and launched the Russian investigation. Never seen that happen in any other federal agency, even as bad as the IRS was. They only had a couple people, and none of them got fired. They just left. They're still getting a pension. So I've never seen anything like that. And the other thing that always strikes me as sort of interesting, and I'll close with this if I could, Mr. Chairman, is the names they gave the investigations, right? The Clinton investigation was the mid-year exam. But the investigation into possible coordination between the Trump campaign and Russia was Crossfire Hurricane. I'd like to, just the name suggests a completely different approach and a completely different standard in how they're going to run the investigation. With that, I'd yield back, Mr. Chairman.
I thank the gentleman. The chair recognizes the gentlewoman